Hi guys, Mrs. Branham here. So this is the first lesson in a series of lessons about factoring. So today's notes, you're going to want to title them Factoring GCF, and this stands for Greatest Common Factor. And this should sound familiar from Algebra 1, but if not, no problem. We're just going to show you what you need to do. All right, so first thing to know is when are we going to use this greatest common factor method, because we're going to learn quite a few different ways to factor and quite a few different strategies. So the answer is, for greatest common factor, you're always going to use this as the first step. So you're always going to look for a common factor. So let's get into some examples. So you'll see the first one here. And if you think I'm going super fast, no problem, just pause the video. Okay, and if I say something and you're not really sure about it, pause the video, rewind, watch again. And ultimately, I am going to do a separate video about note-taking, but I want to mention this here because it is probably one of our first lessons. The other thing to note is, if you ever write something down and you don't really know where it came from, put a note off to the side and ask your teacher the next day. The other advice I have is to write your own notes off to the side at the end of each example, saying what we did. So you'll notice I'm just going to work through the examples, but if there's anything there that you want to remember, write it off to the side. All right, so first thing we want to do is we want to look at the numbers. So we have 4, 6, and 2. What is a number that 4, 6, and 2 are all divisible by evenly? So they're all divisible by 2. So I'm going to put a 2 out in front. Now we want to look at our letters, our variables, and we want to see if they have anything in common. And I noticed that all 3 terms have an A. So that means I can also pull out an A. So this is the greatest common factor. This is the biggest thing that all 3 terms are divisible by. So I'm going to divide them all by 2a. I'm basically taking that 2a and I'm pulling it out of each one and I'm putting it in the front, okay? So if I have 4 divided by 2, that's going to be 2. A divided by a is just 1. They would cancel each other out. C is left over, okay? So then here I've got 6 divided by 2, which is going to be 3. A divided by a is 1. It cancels each other out, so then I've just got that 3. And then here, 2 divided by 2 is 1. So I can write the 1, but I don't need to. So basically what ends up happening on this one is the 2a and the 2a would cancel each other out, and we would just be left with b. All right, this is factored. Factor is basically what you would multiply together to get back to the original. So if you think about it, if I were to, this is my answer, but if I were to distribute this, multiply it back out, I would end up with the original problem. So if I multiply this back out, 2 times 2 is 4. I would have a and c, 4ac, okay? 2a times 3, that would be 6a, it's here, and then negative 2a times b, negative 2ab, it's here, okay? So this is my answer, and you can always check your answer by multiplying it back out. All right, let's do another example. Number 2, we're going to do 42 x to the 4th minus 30x squared plus 12x. This is where I give you a little mini lecture that if you don't know your multiplication facts, you better get a set of flashcards, get an internet program, start learning them. You are old enough to know what you know and what you don't know. In your heart, you know if you don't know your multiplication facts. So start learning them, because it'll make your entire Algebra 2 year much, much easier. Okay, seriously, get a set of flashcards. All right, when I look at this, I instantly know that 42, 30, and 12 are all divisible by 6. If you don't know that instantly, then you need to get a set of flashcards and practice your multiplication facts, okay? So those are all divisible by 6, so I'm going to put a 6 out in front. Now, for the x's, they all have at least one x. So I look at my lowest power, which is x to the first power. That's going to be able to be pulled out of all of them. Then I start my parentheses, because there's nothing else in common with all of them. All right, so now I'm dividing. 42 divided by 6 is 7. X to the fourth divided by x leaves me with x to the third. Basically, I have 4 x's here, and I'm taking one of them to the front. Okay. All right, so this is negative 30, so divide by 6, I'm going to get negative 5. I had 2 x's, I took away one of them, so I've got one left. And then here, this is going to be 12 divided by 6, which is 2. X divided by x, there's no more x's there, so don't write an x, okay? Again, you can check your answer by multiplying this back out and making sure you get the original. All right, here's the next example. Negative 49n to the third plus 28n squared minus 35n. Okay. Remember I said you need to know your multiplication facts? I was serious. I'm still serious. Learn your multiplication facts. Okay? Make flashcards. All right, here we go. 49, 28, and 35. Right away you should know they're all divisible by 7. Okay? But what do you see in front? A negative. If there is ever a negative in the front of what you are factoring, you must take out the negative as part of the common factor. Okay? So basically I'm going to put a negative out in front. I know they're all divisible by 7, and I look at my variables and I see that they all have at least n to the first power. So my common factor, my greatest common factor that I'm using this time is negative 7n. So I'm going to divide everything by negative 7n. So negative divided by a negative is going to be positive. I have n squared left because I divided by 1n, which leaves me with 2 n's left. All right, 28. So I need to be careful with my signs here. This is positive 28. This is negative 7. If you need a calculator, use a calculator. I would rather you use a calculator and get it right. Okay? All right, negative 35 divided by negative 7 is going to be positive 5. N divided by n is just 1, so nothing's there. All right, I've got one last example for you. This is number 4. 12x squared minus 6x plus 18. So again, look at your numbers. They're all divisible by 6. Now, look at your variables. This has x squared, this has x. This doesn't have a variable. So what that means is there are no common variables. So that means that the only greatest common factor that I have, the only greatest common factor is the 6. So what's going to be left? 2x squared minus 1x. You can put the 1, you don't have to put the 1. 18 divided by 6 is going to be positive 3. All right, that's factoring by the greatest common factor. Again, if you thought it was too fast, rewind, rewatch, rewrite, make yourself some notes off to the side, but that's what you need to do for greatest common factor, and you will always look for a greatest common factor as your first step whenever we are factoring.